Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Dodgers Dawgs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. My name is Austin Brubaker. I am your host on this afternoon, and it's an exciting show that we're going to be able to have today because we're going to dive deeper into some of the moves, particularly one decision that the Dodgers made last week. Still very early into the offseason, so a lot of moves have yet to be made, but they made one very important move that could determine some of their strategy going forward because the Dodgers added Ryan Ward to their roster. Now, a lot of people are taking this as this doesn't mean a whole lot for the Dodgers, meaning they can still pursue any of the strategies that they want to going into this offseason. Yes, to a certain degree, that is true. But we're going to examine what exactly this decision for Ryan Ward means in a little bit more detail, and then see if he is part of the mix, if he is potentially part of this roster. What does this do for the potential targets that the Dodgers could go out and get? And if Ryan Ward is part of the mix, is there a new potential favorite target that the Dodgers should go out and acquire? We're going to be examining all of those different questions on the show today. Still not a whole lot of news in the offseason. Obviously, the Dodgers made a few moves last week to get the roster back down to 40. They added two guys that were unexpected: outfielder Ryan Ward from the farm system and left-handed reliever Robinson Ortiz from the farm system as a replacement for those guys, or guys that are not on the 40-man roster. Just some updates for you guys. Tony Gonsolin designated for assignment. We still have not heard exactly what's going to happen to him. Michael Grove is a minor league free agent, so he is no longer part of the organization as of now. And then Justin Dean was claimed by the San Francisco Giants. So we're going to be doing a lot of discussion back and forth. Couldn't be more excited to be able to do that and continue with the offseason talk as we've been discussing this so far. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Classic, No Name, Saints World, and Craig Osterberg. Just a couple of programming notes before we actually get started. I believe Casey and I are going to be doing our first combined off-season show, I believe, tomorrow night. Tomorrow it's going to be a late show. It's going to be after 7 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be a late show for me because I'm on the East Coast. But we're planning on doing one tomorrow and on Wednesday. Wednesdays is probably going to be around 5:30-ish Pacific time. So there's going to be a couple of upcoming shows where we're going to be discussing things back and forth, including offseason moves, how we see the Dodgers organization as a whole, and the Rule 5 draft. The Rule 5 draft, minor league players that could be selected from the Rule 5 draft. The Dodgers are going to have to make decisions on those players shortly. We will be going deep dive into a lot of those players. Casey currently right now is interviewing a lot of players and personnel from the system. He released an interview last week, I believe it was on Friday, actually not with the player currently in the Dodgers system, but somebody who pitched in the World Series, Braden Fisher of the Toronto Blue Jays, former Dodgers prospect, got his perspective. Great interview there. There's going to be additional interviews from Dodgers personnel upcoming in the future, and there's going to be a lot of deep dive into the minor league system, because that is something that we take a lot of pride in here at Dodgers Daily, is really understanding the Dodgers minor league system and getting a chance to be able to get to know and understand the strengths of each one of these players. And I think that's where the Dodgers are at as an organization, is they do a really good job taking a self-evaluation of their players in their system and who's going to fit really well onto their roster, which means that I don't believe it is a mistake at this point why Ryan Ward was added onto the roster. Now, let me address a couple of misconceptions about this specific move for Ryan Ward. Ryan Ward was not specifically added to the 40-man roster to protect him from the Rule 5 draft. The Rule 5 draft is to protect players from the minor league system from other organizations taking them and adding them to their 26-man roster. Ryan Ward was not in that position because he was due to be a minor league free agent after this season, after the 2025 season, which means that, and there's a list of, I believe, about 17 Dodgers players from the system. We might go through that list in a little bit. Players that are no longer part of the Dodgers organization because they reached the status of minor league free agency. That was the destiny of both Ryan Ward and Robinson Ortiz. The reason why the Dodgers added them to the 40-man roster when they did is because they were not willing to lose out on those types of players, those types of prospects. So Ryan Ward was specifically added to the Dodgers 40-man roster because they did not want to lose him in minor league free agency. Let's also talk a little bit about something else, and let's go ahead and pull up some of his numbers just so you guys understand the profile. Again, utilizing Fangraphs for a lot of this stuff. We'll get into some of my own spreadsheet, which is in the description in the chat below. One of the things I hear quite a bit about Ryan Ward, and to a certain extent, it is true. The reason, or one of the things that people point out is Ryan Ward, the past 2 seasons, I believe, has been eligible for the Rule 5 draft, and teams did not take him. So this would be following the 2023 season and following the 2024 season. No teams took him in the Rule 5 draft, and that certainly is true. But let's look at the progress that Ryan Ward has made as an offensive player in those seasons, and he has spent the past 3 seasons at the AAA level. 2023 hit 234, 324, 424. That is a 748 OPS. You might say, hey, that's not bad for Ryan Ward. If you take into account the league environment, the Pacific Coast League, that's an 83 WRC+, meaning that a team, if they wanted to take him in the Rule 5 draft, would be taking an 83 WRC+ player at the AAA level. He was not taken in the Rule 5 draft then. And then last year, or in 2024, 258, 317, 543, again, 33 home runs, made a lot of improvements in a lot of different areas. Numbers certainly jumped up, 108 WRC+. But it was not to a point where teams decided to make a decision to add them to the roster. What makes Ryan Ward different this year than in previous years, and part of the reason why teams did not take him in the Rule 5 draft previously, you're looking at an 83 and a 108 WRC+, still really solid, but that is combined with power and some struggles in the strikeout sense. 25.5% in 23, 27% in 24, meaning a more high swing and miss guy with some powers in his game. Where Ryan Ward has really succeeded as a player, not only have the numbers jumped up, a lot of the underlying statistics went in the right direction as well. This past season, 290, 380, 557, a 132 WRC+. If you take these numbers, you combine that with the fact that he's walking close to 13% of the time and striking out under 19%, a drop of about 8% for Ryan Ward this past season in his strikeout percentage. If you take these numbers and the profile player and put him last year in the Rule 5 draft category, I think there is a much higher chance that he gets taken in the Rule 5 draft. And you look at some of the additional numbers as well. There's going to be some ads and stuff, so I apologize for that. If you look at some of the in-zone contact percentage, the zone contact percentage in 23 was about 82%, 24 was about 81%. This past year, it jumped up all the way to 87%, a lot closer to what the league norm numbers are. And then out of zone contact percentage jumped up quite a bit. He's also a significantly more patient hitter at the plate. And so the reason why I wanted to go through each one of those numbers is because I believe it's a little bit of a misconception. One, that Ryan Ward was eligible for the Rule 5 draft. He was, but he was going to be a minor league free agent. And number two, the fact that Ryan Ward's numbers have dramatically improved makes this year a little bit different in his circumstances. He has made himself to be a much better, more complete offensive player as a person in the Dodger system. So that brings up a very serious question if you are the front office in an organization as to what was the rationale and decision behind adding Ryan Ward at this specific time to the roster, especially when we take into account the Dodgers have very limited roster spots. They have a 40-man roster spot, and there is not a lot of room there's not a lot of wiggle room for just about any single guy. Why did they make the decision to add Ryan Ward now when he was about to get an opportunity with another organization? And I think this comes down to a multitude of different questions for the Dodgers that they have to answer specifically, especially when it pertains to Ryan Ward as a specific player and what they actually view as his role. Number one, is he going to get a legitimate shot to make the roster? Or is he minor league depth? If he is minor league depth, I do not understand, nor do I really like this move. I understand it from an organization, especially when you have a player as talented as Ryan Ward and as major league ready as he is with his past season, what he was able to produce, now being the all-time home run leader in Oklahoma City Comets history, and not just under the Comets name, but in the Oklahoma City AAA club history. He is somebody that absolutely needs to go out there and get some sort of opportunity soon, or at least has earned and deserved the right to get that opportunity. So the question is, are the Dodgers going to be able to present him with that opportunity, or do they as an organization see a talent and see the prospect of having 3 additional years of club control and want to hoard on to him because they have the need for club control? That is a very serious question, and that's where Ryan Ward fits into this mix becomes such a unique situation that the Dodgers have to handle, and they have to be able to handle this with appropriately, because this is going to determine, especially with the guys and the farm system, whether or not there seemingly is hope for guys to be able to move up to the system, or is it just a hoard on to these guys, hoard on to the talent as much as possible, and whoever we trade actually gets an opportunity to be able to succeed. With Ryan Ward, let's look at a little bit of some of his profile as a player and where this could turn into something where the Dodgers could have a player that they could utilize. Ryan Ward is an exceptional hitter. You look at his power numbers that he's been able to produce. Last year, obviously, 36 home runs. The year before it, 33 home runs. From the type of player that you look at, would not determine that would be the type of player that would hit for that many home runs. He has absolutely done so, and he has beyond exceeded against right-handed pitching. Last year at AAA, he had a 1.038 OPS. He was phenomenal against right-handed pitching, and that is something that desperately the Dodgers have been needing as part of this roster. So let's go ahead and look at the Dodgers roster. Again, this is a little bit of review just to get into the premise of what I'm trying to get at in just a minute. But this is the Excel spreadsheet. This is looking at the offensive stats 2023 to 2025. Get us a little bit better of an overview of how good these players are in certain splits. If we look at the splits of a lot of these players, you're going to look, there's a lot of guys who are not very good or don't have the best major league numbers against right-handed pitching. Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Will Smith, and Teoscar Hernandez are the only players that are on the roster that have a major league career of 100 WRC plus or greater against right-handed pitching in the past 3 seasons. Now, this does include a couple of younger guys, like, for example, Dalton Rushing and Alex Freeland, who are a lot better against right-handed pitching, but struggled a little bit throughout the course of last season. But still, they have a lot of guys who, as a whole, are a little bit better against left-handed pitching, which means that the overall goal for this team as a unit, I believe, is to get a little bit better against right-handed pitching. Looking at the Dodgers lineup and their splits going into this upcoming season, just to give you guys a little bit of a better understanding, this is, if they decided to bring back Miguel Rojas, what the lineup could look like going into 2026, particularly against right-handed pitching. If you look against lefties, they could, if you bring back Miguel Rojas, construct a lineup that is really solid against righties. All guys that have 110 WRC plus or greater against right-handed pitching. Or against left-handed pitching, I should say. I keep mixing those things up. Versus right-handed pitching, you have a couple of areas that could be a little bit of holes in the lineup, and this is especially apparent if you look at all the players that are on the roster. They really could utilize somebody who could be a right-handed mashing hitter, and this is especially apparent in the outfield where Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pages, and Alex Call all better against left-handed pitching than they are against right-handed pitching. So they need an outfielder who can hit really well against right-handed pitching. Ryan Ward fits that description. So the question is, if Ryan Ward is part of the equation, which I know a lot of you guys are going to say Ryan Ward is now just a trade piece. They're going to utilize him to go out and get any number of trade pieces. They're going to go out, or they're going to sign a Kyle Tucker, or they're going to sign a Cody Bellinger, or they're going to trade for a Jarren Duran, or they're going to trade for a Stephen Kwan. Let's go under the assumption that the front office actually sees something with Ryan Ward. Let's go with this premise. Let's go with the premise that Ryan Ward is actually part of the plan of the Dodgers. And it's not just we're utilizing him for depth. We're actually going to give him some sort of realistic shot to be able to make it to the big leagues. If that is the case, how does that change the front office and roster construction strategy for the Los Angeles Dodgers? And I think it changes things in a little bit of ways, particularly when it comes to the outfield. Let's say that Ryan Ward is actually part of the mix and is actually, during the course of spring training, going to be fighting for some sort of roster spot. I think if that's the case, assuming that the Dodgers keep Andy Pages and Teoscar Hernandez, that is not necessarily a guarantee, but with Andy Pages, he was a top 12 outfielder by Fangraphs WAR in 2025 and has 5 years of team control and is making the league minimum. I can almost guarantee you, or I would very, very much expecting Andy Pages to be on the roster in 2026 for the Dodgers. Teoscar Hernandez, they're paying him a lot of money to be on the Dodgers, and I still expect Teoscar to be on the Dodgers next year. If that is the case for Ryan Ward next year, I think there's 1 or 2 spots that he could potentially fight for. He could fight for the open spot that Michael Conforto issued in the outfield last year, or he could fight for a backup spot with Alex Call and be able to compete for that. I believe there has to be some sort, if you have Ryan Ward on your 40-man roster next year, I think there has to be some sort of avenue for him to be able to compete for a roster spot. But let's say they bring in a big-time outfield addition, like some of the names that I had mentioned: Kwan, Tucker, Bellinger, Duran, so on and so forth. Does that almost completely eliminate any sort of playing time, any sort of path for Ryan Ward to be on the roster? And would you rather utilize somebody like an Alex Call? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is Alex Call at least has had the chance to be integrated into the big league level with your young guys, with your prospects. Is the best way to be able to integrate them into the big leagues, to have them sit on the bench 130 to 140 days out of the year, which likely would be the path for Ryan Ward if you have an outfield of, let's say, a Kyle Tucker, Teoscar Hernandez, and an Andy Pages. I think that likely would be the path if he is at the major league level, which really relegates him as minor league depth. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume that there's some sort of path for Ryan Ward onto this roster. How does that change the math? And I think it particularly alters some of the equation when it comes to the type of player that you're targeting. I still believe the Dodgers, even though that they have added Ryan Ward, even though he is an extraordinary hitter against right-handed pitching, at least at the minor league level, they still need to get a more established bat that can particularly hit against right-handed pitching, because I want a little bit more security in that aspect. I want somebody that has had a longer track record of being able to do so. The position-wise in which that can come from actually opens up a little bit with this move with Ryan Ward, meaning the decision to have Ryan Ward on the roster means you might have to alter the specific target of player position-wise that you go out and get. And I think this opens up the avenue, particularly for one trade piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at all of the different outfield targets that we have and identify really the one guy who I see as being somebody who can play multiple different positions. So the top right here, all the outfield targets that are, or potential outfield targets that are free agents. This includes Bellinger, Tucker, Yastrzemski, Kepler, Grisham, so on and so forth, Harrison Bader. There's also trade pieces down here that the Dodgers could potentially turn to. And I think a move adding Ryan Ward onto the roster really makes a really good possibility for the Dodgers to bring in somebody like a Brendan Donovan. Now, Brendan Donovan is currently part of the St. Louis Cardinals. He is actually one of their better hitters on the roster. And let's look at what he's done over the past 3 seasons, 2023 to 2025 stats. 282 batting average, 351 on base percentage, 420 slugging, 117 WRC plus over the past 3 seasons, and he has been really solid against right-handed pitching, 131 WRC plus. What's very noticeable about Brendan Donovan is he is more of a utility type player, but particularly a second baseman and a left fielder. With Ryan Ward on this roster, and if you have now 4 outfielders that could potentially be part of the mix. Again, this is assuming that Ryan Ward stays within the Dodgers organization, stays a part of the Dodgers. You have 4 outfielders that are full-time dedicated outfielders with Andy Pages, Teoscar Hernandez, Alex Call, and Ryan Ward. You could utilize a platoon of Ryan Ward, really good against righties at the minor leagues, and Alex Call, really good against left-handed pitching, or 114 WRC plus against lefties over the past couple of seasons. You have 4 pure outfielders. What you could do is help supplement the lineup in a little bit of a different aspect, and this particularly comes with the Dodgers with some of their splits. If we look at the lineup right now as currently constructed going into it, and this includes Miguel Rojas against left-handed pitching, what you'll notice is pretty heavily against right-handed pitching, Tommy Edman has not been really solid against right-handed pitching, meaning he just has a 79 WRC plus against right-handed pitching over the past 3 seasons. That could be an area, even if it's just we want to get a little bit better against right-handed pitching in that aspect, that the Dodgers could potentially turn to. Now, one thing this would be potentially sacrificing is some of the defense. But let's take that into account is you could potentially have Brendan Donovan, who's 131 WRC plus against righties, followed by a Ryan Ward, who has hit righties really well at the minor leagues, but still needs to be integrated into the mix. And I think this is really apparent with the Dodgers roster construction right now, where it comes from position players. So this is currently, as it sits, the position player roster construction. Shohei Ohtani, Will Smith, Mookie Betts, Tommy Edman, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Pages, Ben Rortvedt. You can substitute Dalton Rushing into that mix. You need some sort of backup catcher. You have currently 4 different roster spots that are open. I would assume Alex Call would probably be part of that mix as well. And then you could do one of, right now, a Miguel Rojas. Let's go ahead and add a Miguel Rojas into the mix, or a Kike Hernandez. I lean a little bit more to Miguel Rojas because of his defensive upside, really solid defender, and his ability to get against left-handed pitching, which I think pairs really well with some of the other options, particularly a guy like Max Muncy, who isn't the greatest against left-handed pitching, or some other targets, especially if you're looking for guys that can hit righties really well. Having somebody like a Miguel Rojas who has better offensive stats during the regular season than Kike Hernandez does, I think could really fit into the mix really well. If you have those 2 guys on your roster, you're already at 11 of the 13 position players that you can have, meaning you have 2 potential spots that you could have. If you want to leave one sort of opening on your roster for somebody like a Ryan Ward, and this could potentially be a really good competition that you could have, let's go ahead and put a Ryan Ward or an Alex Freeland, if I could actually spell, or a Hae-Sung Kim. So it could be a Ward, Alex Freeland, Hae-Sung Kim competition to be able to fight for the mix, in which case there could be an opening in the outfield or at second base. That leaves you with one more potential spot on your roster for an addition, which means that if it is true that the Dodgers organization, and this is under the premise and assumption that Ryan Ward actually has a conceivable spot to be able to earn his way onto the roster, and that it's not just a 40-man roster, minor league depth, we're having you on the roster, or utilize him as a trade piece. If there actually is a conceivable way to be able to get him onto the roster, is the best use of resources going to be go after another free agent or trade exclusive outfielder, or do you want to add a little bit more versatility that can still hit against right-handed pitching? And to be able to fit into that mix, I think the answer could potentially be somebody like a Brendan Donovan. Now, we're going to actually go over that specific equation. What we're going to do is we're actually going to delete some of these right here. But let's go over specifically the mix if this is the case that the Dodgers are going to go down, which again, a lot of this is very much speculative. We're going to be going over this specific equation. We're going to be going over it a couple of different ways and allow you guys to be able to see this potential path that the Dodgers could go down. So what I have right here is the Dodgers roster and lineups versus right-handed pitching and versus left-handed pitching if they bring back Miguel Rojas, if they trade for Brendan Donovan, and if the Dodgers have Ryan Ward onto their roster. So this is assuming they make this trade, they sign Miguel Rojas, and Ryan Ward is able to beat out an Alex Freeland and a Ha-Seong Kim during the course of spring training, which I think would actually be really healthy to be able to have a competition in spring training between those three to get onto the roster, or at least some sort of competition, some sort of conceivable way for some of the young guys to be able to add into the mix. I've talked extensively about adding youth onto this roster to make it a lot better. What I have done is I have created some sort of splits. Now, for Ryan Ward, I do not have any sort of numbers in the past as far as his ability to hit right-handed pitching at the major league level. What I have done is looked at some of the projections, and based off some of the projections and just based off of the adequacy to be able to adapt to big league level, I put him at a little bit below league average at a 90 WRC+. You could say that's too generous. You could say that's too low. I think it's somewhere around the middle or somewhere within the realm of possibility for Ryan Ward at the big league level, if not even slightly low for what his totals could be. But this could potentially be what a lineup looks like against right-handed pitching if you add these two guys in the mix. You'll notice that Tommy Edman, in this case, would not be hitting, at least at the start, against right-handed pitching. We'll get to the defensive aspect in just a minute, but if you look and average this total WRC plus versus right-handed pitching, be about a lineup that has, with 2023 to 2025 stats for the basis or a projection for Ryan Ward, an average about a 130 WRC plus. Pretty good lineup against righties. Same thing against lefties. You'll notice that all of these guys, and we've talked about this lineup with some of the past shows that we have, all have WRC pluses greater than a 110 against left-handed pitching, 128 WRC plus for them. Now, what I want to do is something that I did a little bit, I believe, during the first show that we have, but I don't think I explained it quite in the extent and detail that I have, because I think this is something that could potentially be important in the game planning aspect, because if we look at this lineup that the Dodgers are able to present, let's specifically look against left-handed pitching, because this was an apparent issue that the Dodgers had during the course of the postseason. The bottom half of the lineup, opponents are going to want to throw right-handed relievers at the Dodgers. How could the Dodgers throughout a game be able to adapt to that? Or, for example, do you have specific runs of lefties that you can go ahead and target? Now, you'll see why I have the lineups split up like this in just a minute. You could very easily rearrange some of these lineups to be able to best fit certain circumstances and be able to maneuver it around. But let's go through a little bit of an exercise. Let's go through a game plan versus right-handed starters and left-handed starters. But particularly what we have is right-handed starter with a left-handed opener and then versus a left-handed starter. How do the Dodgers, if they were to have Ryan Ward and Brendan Donovan into their mix, be able to match up with each one of these aspects? So let's start off with the right-handed starter. What would an opponent try to do if they were to game plan around the Dodgers lineup, this specific lineup right here, for against if they have a right-handed starter part of the mix? One thing that you're going to notice, and I'm going to be talking about what I call runs in the lineup. This is specific 3 to 5 hitters in a row that might be more advantageous versus right-handed pitching versus left-handed pitching. What you'll notice is the Dodgers' top of the lineup, Ohtani, Freeman, Muncy, all are going to be guys that you want to face more with left-handed pitching. You can see Muncy significantly worse against lefties. Ohtani a lot worse against lefties, although still really solid for him. Freddie Freeman a little worse against lefties, but still somebody you probably would, as a team, prefer to face against left-handed pitching. There's a run of left-handed bats in the Dodgers corner that the opponent teams would want to target. And so if they were to start some sort of left-handed opener, these are the WRC plus numbers versus the specific type of pitcher or type of arm, righty versus lefty, that the opposing team would go up against. So it could potentially be left-handed opener against Ohtani, Freeman, and Muncy. And then you get to a right-handed starter. And where this gets really interesting as part of the mix is if opposing teams, and they would have a specific choice that they would want to make or would have to make as a team. Do you want to go against a right-handed starter at the beginning of the lineup, meaning against Shohei, against Freeman, against Muncy, or would you want to use a little bit of strategy and putting an opener, a lefty opener, and then having be the first hitter that your starter goes up against, be a little bit more of an advantageous matchups against Smith and Teoscar Hernandez? We're going to assume that the latter is true. So Will Smith is actually the first hitter that faces against the right-handed starter. What this allows the right-handed starter to do is go through the entire order, meaning from Will Smith all the way through to Max Muncy. From Will Smith all the way to Max Muncy, face those hitter 2 times through against the right-handed starter. And then when it comes to the third time around through the starter, you can go Will Smith, Teoscar Hernandez, and then you have a little bit of a decision to make, because then you have a little bit of a run, Brandon Donovan, Andy Pages, Ryan Ward, and Shohei Ohtani, in which opposing teams could utilize a left-handed reliever. That's what I have in this equation. If you can still have Brandon Donovan hit against the left-handed reliever, still 81 WRC plus against left-handed reliever, but Andy Pages would be really advantageous in that type of role. If the opposing team wanted to put a lefty against Brandon Donovan, in a similar vein, you could also substitute for a Ryan Ward a right-handed bat, either a Tommy Edman or an Alex Call. Tommy Edman, 111 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. Alex Call, 114 WRC plus against right-handed pitching over the past 3 seasons. That could be an avenue in which you combat the left-handed reliever, Shohei Ohtani, obviously still Shohei Ohtani, and then they could utilize right-handed relievers throughout the rest of the game, in which case you could still have somebody like Brendan Donovan really solid against right-handed pitching. You need that for later in the game. You could also potentially substitute Alex Call for Tommy Edman if you don't want Tommy Edman to face against a right-handed reliever. There's a lot of different ways to be able to fit into this mix, but let's go through this, looking at this game plan with a right-handed starter and a left-handed opener. There's a lot of advantageous matchups. Again, red being really solid for the Dodgers, blue being a little bit more of an advantage for the opponents. Even if you don't add a Jarren Duran on top of a Brendan Donovan, you could really make something work, and this would allow you to be able to have somebody at second base while still being able to find some sort of role for Ryan Ward as part of the mix. This would get him integrated into a specific role. And what this would also allow you to do is, let's say that Ryan Ward really struggles in spring training. I believe he struggled a little bit in spring training this past season, but then went off during the course of the regular season at the minor league level. Let's say that Alex Freeland or Hae-Sung Kim wins the job at second base. You can utilize somebody like Brendan Donovan not only at second base, but also in left field. And so, if Ryan Ward does not win the job in spring training, Alex Freeland and Hae-Sung Kim could fit into that mix. And I think the Dodgers as an organization, I know they see Alex Freeland as a better hitter against left-handed pitching than they do against right-handed pitching than they do against left-handed pitching. And I think they see the same thing, even though the numbers last year didn't bear out with Hae-Sung Kim. I think they see Kim as a little bit better profiling player going forward against righties and lefties, just based off the way they actually played those players. This would create a potential path and opportunity for them to be able to integrate those guys while allowing that decision and that process to play itself out to where they can see which one of these guys actually earns a spot. And if somebody's hitting better at the minor leagues and somebody's struggling at the major leagues, perhaps you could utilize and call one of those players up and actually fight for some sort of mix and fight for some sort of role. And what this would do, if you look at the course of a game versus right-handed pitching, let's look at a number of the plate appearances that Ryan Ward has specifically against a right-handed starter. He starts off, he's the fifth batter potentially that a right-handed starter makes the faces. He also is the 14th batter that the same right-handed starter goes up against. So very likely he's going to get those plate appearances. Those are the only plate appearances that he has during the course of this mock type game. If they wanted to put a left-handed reliever for a Brendan Donovan, Pages, Ward, Ohtani run in the lineup, which means he's having still some experience to be able to go out there and compete. And you can say the exact same thing for Freeland. You can say the same thing for Hae-Sung Kim, while also presenting yourself with matchup opportunities to be able to substitute and platoon into the mix and find different roles for him to be able to succeed. Let's go through the exact same exercise, but against a left-handed starter. Again, this is game planning aspects. This is part of the decision, and I know it doesn't like to get talked about, or it's the Dodgers overuse some of the game planning aspect, but this is some of the things that you have to take into account. You go through the lineup 4 times through, and you figure out, okay, what are likely opposing teams going to try to throw at us, and how can we best combine it? And this is with taking into account the best intentions, meaning opposing teams want to go ahead and try to best combat against some of the Dodgers hitters. How can we best go about combating some of that process? In my mock lineup versus left-handed pitching, Ohtani, Betts, Smith, Freeman, Hernandez, Rojas, Call, Pages, Edman, you'll notice that only 2 left-handed bats are in the order, Ohtani and Freeman. Pretty obvious that they're likely to be in the lineup, or almost certainly going to be in the lineup against left-handed pitching. The rest of the lineup is flooded with right-handed pitching, particularly this bottom run of the lineup, Teoscar, Rojas, Call, Pages, and Edman. That is very much an advantage where an opposing team's going to look at that, and they're likely going to want to try to face a right-handed reliever against that mix, or this presents an opportunity for the Dodgers to be able to make some substitutions late in the game that can really help get advantages in the lineup. So this is not with a right-handed opener because you have Shohei Ohtani and you have Freddie Freeman within the first 4 batters. They likely would go with some sort of opener. If they have a left-handed starter, they just have the left-handed starter go ahead and go through it. And what I have the left-handed starter going through the full order twice and then getting through Freddie Freeman. You can make an argument you might want to just get through Shohei Ohtani and have that be the 19 batters. But in this scenario, let's say that the opposing team goes through the order 3rd time through Shohei Ohtani and through Freddie Freeman to be able to get some of those advantages, those matchup advantages. You would have likely a Miguel Rojas, if he's part of the roster, in the mix. Really solid and underrated against left-handed pitching. Same thing with Alex Call. Underrated against left-handed pitching, and Tommy Edman, who actually put up really good numbers against left-handed pitching. All 3 of those guys do not require you, besides the Miguel Rojas re-signing him, to acquire a full-time role, full-time bat to add to the mix and still be really solid contributors based on what they've done in previous years. You could have questions about their projectability going forward, but they would be really solid, and 2 times through the order, this would be what the lineup would be. And then through Ohtani, Betts, Freeman, Smith, Freeman, before you get into this run of 5 batters that are better against lefties than they are against righties, if they decide to take the bait and go ahead and pitch a righty versus Teoscar Hernandez, you could instantly, because of the 3 batter minimum, after Teoscar Hernandez, substitute a Max Muncy and a Brendan Donovan, who are really good against right-handed pitching, 144 and 131 the past 3 years respectively, and have really good matchup advantages at that specific part of the lineup once the opposing team tries to turn to a right-handed reliever, which likely wouldn't be even the high-leverage right-handed reliever at that point of the career, at that point of the game. You'd have Andy Paes, Tommy Edman face that right-handed reliever, have them face 5 batters. And then left-handed reliever likely would want to face Shohei Ohtani against lefties as much as they possibly can. And then face a right-handed, I just have a right-handed reliever right here. You could easily put a left-handed reliever as part of this mix, although that's going to be a lot of left-handed relievers that they're going to utilize through the course of the game. Still have a lot of matchups. Again, during this game plan against a left-handed starter, there is 4 different projected matchups that have a sub 110 WRC plus against. And that is without adding somebody more than a Brendan Donovan and somebody like a Ryan Ward as part of the mix, besides a Miguel Rojas that you can add to your team. That creates really good matchup opportunities throughout the entire course of the game. Again, if you want to look at kind of a summary, this is a little bit of a summary of what this exercise does as far as the number of plate appearances against righties and against lefties. What does this average out to with their WRC plus, depending on what they've done the past 3 years and how many times they've actually gone ahead and faced each one of these pitchers. I think just position-wise, and especially with production-wise in the lineup, I think this, if they're going to give either Ryan Ward, Alex Freeland, or Ha-Seong Kim a fair shot, I think this would probably be the best move because of his versatility, Brendan Donovan, and because what this means for the guys that are closest to Major League ready. And if you talk about the long-term availability of guys coming up through the farm system, this does not clog a path for a Josue De Paulo or Zaire Hope or Eduardo Quintero or a Mike Sirota or Chris Newell or Damon Keith or a James Tibbs III or a Zach Earhart or any number of these outfield prospects as part of the mix. They're still very much part of the equation that the Dodgers could potentially turn to. This might be one of those because Brendan Donovan has 2 more years of club control, a good short-term mix to be able to say, hey, we are actually serious, and this is, again, under the assumption that the organization is not just seeing Ryan Ward as minor league depth, but is actually serious about their intentionality going forward and having him have a realistic shot to be able to compete for a spot onto this roster. If that is the case, then I think the person that they could turn to that probably has the highest upside and the most versatility that they could realistically target would be somebody like a Brendan Donovan. Now, some of the concerns about having Ryan Ward as part of this mix. Let's go through a couple of these. One, this also really limits some of the availability of some of your guys, particularly when it comes to center field. In this mix, if this is the roster that they have Andy Pages, who would 100% be the full-time center fielder going forward, or most certainly would. Andy Pages would be center field. You also have Tommy Edman, who I'm assuming would be coming back and hoping that he is healthy, good to go going forward for the Dodgers. And then the third outfielder as part of that mix is an Alex Call. Those would be your 3 guys that could play center field. With Brendan Donovan, he cannot play center field. He's more of a left fielder type of mix, or at least that's how I have him profiled based off of the playing time that he has played for St. Louis. And then Ryan Ward is not a center field. He very much is going to be a left field type option that they could turn to. He could also play probably a little bit of right field. But there is some concern about Ryan Ward's defense, and this is what we're going to look at is the defensive aspect if this is the way that the Dodgers turn to, because I think it becomes a very big question as to what you are actually concerned about, and this could be where some of the competition during spring training, if it is a competition between Ward, Freeland, and Kim, what could be one of the deciding factors, because if Ryan Ward is part of the mix, I don't think the defense, especially with an addition of Brendan Donovan, really makes it a full complete team. So what I have is an average of a player's defensive run saves, outs above average, and fielding run value over the past 3 seasons, scaled to 162 games. All you need to know, numbers in red or positive numbers are good. Negative numbers, not so good of a defender. And what I have for Ryan Ward, because I have no idea what exactly his defensive value would be, and because there is a lot of question marks let's just say, about Ryan Ward's defense, I put it as a -5. Now, that might seem a little bit extreme. If you look at Teoscar Hernandez's number, it's worse than Teoscar Hernandez. I just put it at this mark at this point just to provide some of the more worst case scenario with adding somebody like the mix, like this into your mix, which could be a very serious concern for the Dodgers if you have a Ryan Ward, Andy Pages, Teoscar Hernandez defensive outfield. We know how a Michael Conforto, Andy Pages, and Teoscar Hernandez defense outfield worked in 2025 for the Dodgers. What would be the mix if that was the case? Now, I think there can be a little bit of platooning because Alex Call is a really solid defender. Andy Pages also grades out as a solid defender. It's Teoscar Hernandez who does not grade out as a great defender. This would not prevent you from moving This would prevent you from moving Andy Pages to any of the corners. But this would be what the defense would look like in that exact same lineup against right-handed pitching. You can look, Mookie Betts and Andy Pages are the solid defenders. Everybody else would be slightly to pretty significantly below league average. Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, and likely somebody like a Ryan Ward probably being some of the worst of the bunch. Brendan Donovan, slightly below league average, or maybe around-ish league average as a defender. Freddie Freeman, I think that number, you can take it with a grain of salt. It's what you want. I think Freddie Freeman's fine at what he's able to do defensively. It's a lot better against left-handed pitching, and you certainly could mix in an Alex Call, put him as part of the mix. Or if you want to, let's say Ryan Ward does not win the battle, but instead a Alex Freeland or a Ha-Seong Kim win the mix, your defense gets a little bit better if that is the case. But that is going to be one aspect in this scenario. And one of the reasons why I think there's a little bit of a questions mark as to why the Dodgers decided to add Ryan Ward as part of the mix is if he's not a solid enough defender, can you justifiably, with Teoscar Hernandez in this outfield, put him on your roster, make him part of the equation that the Dodgers have? That's a great question, and one that, based off the defense that I've seen, I think it's fine, but I don't think it's spectacular. How does that actually translate to the big league level is going to be a massive question, and he has to at least be somewhat contributing either in a decent way offensively or in a somewhat acceptable way defensively to be able to add into this mix. He can do a lot of really good things. Ryan Ward can. Can he be able to have the necessary defense to be able to put him in a position where he can make this roster? Really good question for the Dodgers. And then one other aspect that we're going to take a look at is, I know this is something that a lot of Dodgers fans are concerned about. There's too much swing and miss in this lineup. Brendan Donovan, if he was targeted, would really help address that. Just a 13% strikeout percentage over the course of the past 3 seasons, 2023 through 2025 statistics. For Ryan Ward, he had a drop, remember, this past year in his strikeout percentage. It dropped to sub 19%. Typically, when players get added to the big leagues or get promoted to the big leagues, the strikeout percentage usually goes up a little bit. Now, with Ryan Ward, he showcased some pretty good in-zone contact quality. We mentioned it, about 86 to 87%, I believe is what it was on Fangraphs. Swing percentage is down pretty significantly from what he had before, so there could be a little bit of concerns that guys like Dalton Rushing or an Alex Freeland called up, guys that had lower strikeout percentages, but a large part of that because they didn't swing the bat quite as much. A little bit of a similar approach for Ryan Ward. Hopefully he's able to make some sort of adaptations at the big league level. But this would be the strikeout percentage as a team if you were to add Donovan and Ryan Ward against right-handed pitching. Donovan really helps bring the strikeout percentage down quite a bit, and where there's a lot of concerns and swing and miss, he would provide a little bit more stability offensive-wise, at least in the strikeout percentage-wise. Against left-handed pitching, I don't really have a ton of concerns with strikeout percentage. This is not strikeout percentage by split. This is strikeout percentage just overall over the past 3 seasons. You can look at some of the numbers there. So, what does this mean for the Dodgers and Ryan Ward? Does this move eliminate them from making additional outfield moves, like I know a lot of you guys are wanting to pursue, like a Kyle Tucker or a Cody Bellinger, like many of you have asked about, or even a platoon option like a Mike Yastrzemski? Does this prevent them from going out and trading for a Steven Kwan, who I know there is a lot of rumors about, or somebody like a Jarren Duran or a Lars Nootbaar? I don't think this necessarily eliminates that. However, and this is just me talking from a personal side of view for Ryan Ward as an individual player. If the organization decided we don't want to lose the talent that this guy has, this guy was destined to be a free agent, could sign with any other organization, could sign with an opportunity to be able to go out and succeed. And what we've determined earlier in the show is, yes, other teams had a chance to be able to pick him up, but he did not have the same success in the past couple of seasons at the AAA level like he had this past year. This past year, he was the Pacific Coast League MVP. There's a difference in the Rule 5 draft between a 108 WRC plus type of player at the Pacific Coast League to the Pacific Coast League MVP with a 132 WRC plus and 36 home runs. There's a vast difference in the profile offensively wise that Ryan Ward is able to present, and which means that there very likely was going to be additional opportunities for some sort of organization or some sort of international league to be able to pick him up. Instead, just days before the Dodgers that he was destined to be a minor league free agent, the Dodgers picked him up. Which means now, if he is part of the Dodgers organization, there must be some sort of plan or some sort of path for him to be able to get some sort of shot at the big league level. I'm not asking for a full-time Ryan Ward is the everyday outfielder with an Andy Pages and Teoscar Hernandez. At best, I am asking for some sort of opportunity to earn some sort of platoon role in the outfield with an Alex Call that you could utilize with other pieces like a Tommy Edman fitting into the mix if needed. What I'm asking for is a fair shot if he is part of the Dodgers organization, which if the strategy is we are still going to go out and get a full-time outfielder like a Steven Kwan or like a Kyle Tucker or like any of the number guys that I have mentioned that hit against right-handed pitching, which still is very much a need for the Dodgers to go out and get a reputable hitter against right-handed pitching. If that is the case, and you don't get some additional versatility that creates some sort of potential path and avenue for Ryan Ward to be part of the mix, I do not understand what this move is for, besides sending Ryan Ward down to the minor league level. And when on the eve of the opportunity for him to seek whatever opportunity that he wanted that he could go out and potentially pursue, to leave him in a position where he's stuck as minor league depth for 3 more years, until he's a free agent after his age 30 season with 0 major league experience or very little major league experience. As a player, I don't know how you go ahead and seek out additional opportunities and fair opportunities for another organization if that's the case. So, to do right by Ryan Ward, find some sort of competition for him now that he's on the 40-man roster, to be able to succeed and be able to fight his way onto the roster, whether that's with a platoon role with Alex Call or whether that's fighting directly for Alex Call's specific spot on the roster, or find some sort of other avenue and take advantage of the value of the player that he is. Again, this does not mean that Ryan Ward has to be on the 40-man roster for the Dodgers. They could absolutely release him. They could trade him. They could do a number of different things. But if he is on the roster, actually create an opportunity for him to be able to fight for a roster spot and look for different avenues to be able to upgrade this team and still find a way to be able to find players that can hit against right-handed pitching, whether that's a trade for a Brendan Donovan or whether that's for some sort of other avenue that achieves this exact same objective. They made a decision to add Ryan Ward onto the roster intentionally. Now, if there is intentionality behind that, and especially because he has proven himself at the minor league level, there has to be some sort of rationale for keeping him on the roster. And that's all I'm asking for, is some sort of plan for him to either be on the roster or at least have a way to be able to compete for a roster spot. If he has the ability to be able to compete for a roster spot, the talent absolutely is there. And if he earns it, He will have more than deserved it, and I wouldn't be any more happy for Ryan Ward. I would be absolutely overjoyed for a player that has earned that spot. He's on your roster now. Do something with Ryan Ward. Let's get into some of the comments. I do have to leave here fairly shortly, so we're going to be just rolling through a couple of these. No name, it's River Ryan season. Anxious to see River Ryan back in blues, the Saints world. Thank you very much for tuning in for that. We'll see what exactly they're able to do with River Ryan. No updates on how he is actually doing at this point, health-wise, but I believe he should be coming back at some point during 2026. He was absolutely phenomenal during his tenure with the Dodgers, and not just his tenure with the Dodgers at the major league level. You look at a lot of the numbers at the minor league level and just watch his stuff. I remember seeing him when he was in Lansing pitching for Great Lakes, and it was unbelievable. It was a River Ryan and Nick Frasso piggyback game, and it was one of the greatest things that I've ever seen at the minor league level. The pitching performance that those two guys have when they were in their prime pre-injury was amazing. Hopefully he's able to be coming back and just being amazing from that going forward. Let's get to a couple of these. Saints World, wonder if the Dodgers trade a few of the top guys for Tucker. They won't be trading for Kyle Tucker. They would have to sign him in free agency, meaning they would have to ink him to likely some sort of 8 to 10 year deal. Are you willing to take on that type of contract and the number of years and potentially risk missing out on some of the minor league players getting opportunities? Is Shohei Ohtani at the designated hitter for the conceivable future? That's a really good question as far as whether Kyle Tucker is worth that type of deal. Very, very good player and would do a lot of things to fix a lot of the issues on the Dodgers. Do you have to go down that path, and is that the best path to be able to go down? Mark, thank you for tuning in. Great info. Odani boy, if he can play defense, I'm all in. I think that's absolutely right. If Ryan Ward can play defense, I think it would be a very different discussion that we would be having. We'd feel a lot more confident and perhaps be feeling a lot more confident than him and see him in a little bit of a similar vein as the profile, not the exact, but the profile of players that somebody like a Mike Yastrzemski would have fit into the mix. He was somebody that I had identified during the part 2 of Welcome to the Offseason because of his unique fit of being able to hit against right-handed pitching. With the addition of Ryan Ward, if Ryan Ward's going to be on this roster, I don't really see why you would add both of those guys if both of them are going to be able to fit into the exact same role. Yastrzemski has a little bit more of a track record of playing good defense. We don't necessarily know that with the major league level stats for Ryan Ward. Let's see. No name. Ryan Ward will probably be traded for prospects like Bush. It's possible that they could trade that. It won't be to the exact same extreme just because of some of the defensive concerns with Ryan Ward, even though there was defensive concerns with a Michael Bush. But also, Ryan Ward, a little bit older. I believe he's going to be entering into his age 28 season, which really limits some of the prospect capital that you could attain for somebody like that. But if that's the plan, is to get him to another organization and utilize him to be able to get some prospects, as long as the organization that they're trading it to actually presents him with a fair opportunity, I think I would be fine with that. Let's see. Continuing this, 4-seater. Wow, even better than Jock and Belly. We'll see what happens. Tracy, use Ryan or let him go. Smash that like button. Absolutely. Bruce Davis, thank you very much for joining us. Let's see. Use him or let him go to a team where he can play every day. That's absolutely right. CNAV, thank you very much for joining us. Bruce Davis, I'd rather not use Call, so let's Ryan Ward. Alex Call, I think, is underrated with a lot of the aspects that he has. I know it wasn't the greatest display of offense that he was able to pursue, but if you're talking about a profile of player that doesn't really strike out a whole lot, that is able to not chase, he's able to draw some walks, can play some solid defense, and is able to produce offensively. Look at the offensive stats that Alex Call is able to produce, especially if you take into account on base percentage and don't just exclusively look at batting average. He's about a league average to slightly below a league average player, and if you utilize Alex Call in a role specifically to give him advantageous matchups against left-handed pitching, I think he could be somebody that could really pair well with somebody that you go out and target. So I'm not against Ryan or Alex Call with what he's able to do. CNAP, play him or free Wardo. I think that's absolutely right. Donnie Boy keeps selling me on Donovan. I think I'm ready to buy. Yeah, I think Brendan Donovan at this point, just because of his positional versatility with the move of Ryan Ward. If they are legit about giving Ryan Ward some sort of fair shot, I think he's the one that jumps to the top for me instantly as giving the Dodgers ultimate flexibility, because they can utilize Donovan in the outfield and left field, or they can utilize him in the infield, and then you actually have competition. Ward, Freeland, Kim. Fight for a roster spot in spring training. That would make for fantastic spring training entertainment, and that could lead to an actual role, because you could see those guys eating into Tommy Edman's share against right-handed pitching, where Tommy Edman has struggled and has been a lot better against left-handed pitching, while not putting them in matchups where it might not be as advantageous for them against left-handed pitching, putting them in a more full-time role. I think that would be a good thing to be able to do. Jeff, I don't think Tucker is worth $400 million. I think he's a very good player. I just don't know if I would go to that extreme right now. Still would be super excited because of the talent that Kyle Tucker has if the Dodgers decided to sign him. Dana Very Sports Highlights. Great Ghostenberg. Good to see each one of you guys. Let's see, continuing some of these. Kwan in left field, Edman in center, and Tucker in right field. That would be completely revolutionizing the outfield. That would be meaning you get rid of Andy Pages and Teoscar Hernandez, looking for some sort of trade. They certainly could trade those guys if they wanted to, but as I had mentioned, Andy Pages, although he was not good during the postseason, he had the great catch, but as a bat, was not able to produce during the postseason. People forget how good he was in the course of the regular season. As I had mentioned earlier, top 12 outfielder by Fangraphs WAR in all of baseball last year was Andy Pages. Very difficult to be able to find those players with that much talent that are on as cheap of a contract and help make your lineup get a lot younger. And with Steven Kwan, the biggest thing with Kwan is there's just no power in his bat. It's going to be a lot of singles. It's going to be a lot of those base hits, not going to be a whole lot of striking out. There's going to be not going to be a lot of barreling up the baseball, which I don't know if that's the avenue that the Dodgers want to go down as a player. But Steven Kwan is also a fantastic defensive player and would really help with the defensive aspect if you want to go ahead and target somebody more for their defense. Jeff says, I'd rather go after Kwan or Bader, way less money than shelling out $400 million for Kyle Tucker. You would not be getting anywhere near as the same offensive upside as Kyle Tucker, but you would be getting players that would cost a lot less and would be improving your defense quite a bit. Tracy says, I like Cody, but I would like to see somebody younger. We'll talk about Cody Bellinger during the show tomorrow, Casey and I, when we have a chance to be able to interact. Bruce Davis, you'll see Dean got picked up from the Giants. Why would you want to lose him? And Jeff says, Dean was never going to be anything more than a late inning pinch runner or defensive replacement for us. I'm happy that he's able to get his opportunity going forward and being able to succeed. Let's get to a couple more questions or a couple more comments. Bruce Davis, I also hope that Call start to get more hits. I was not a fan with Call, but he was a good pickup. I think he was a good pickup as well. It was difficult because Hope was capitalized and was trying to determine whether or not you were talking about Zaire Hope or not. CNAV, 27 home runs, I believe. I believe that was the amount Andy Pages was able to have. Al Minerva, I doubt the front office will make any sort of big signings. I don't think they necessarily have to make any sort of big signings. I still think you can make this team and address the areas of need without necessarily doing that or going all in on free agency. And we'll actually have some research about this perhaps next Monday. I'm hoping to have it done by next Monday, but next Monday could be a very big show because we could look at a lot of free agent signings over the past decade plus, I think past 11 years in the Andrew Friedman era, and see just how well those free agent signings actually are able to do and just what the impact of signing guys to free agent signings. Is it actually worth it? Or is the better thing to be able to do is find the better fits and extend the players that you have? That's going to be the question that we're going to be addressing hopefully by next Monday. If not next Monday, hopefully the Monday after that, once I'm done with the research that I have. Let's see. Jeff says, really wish they would move Shohei to the 3-hole. I don't care about 40 or so extra at-bats. Too many solo homers leading off. I still like Shohei lead off. I like him getting those extra at-bats. Just me. CNAV, we'll talk about bullpen a little bit of a different time. Fairbanks absolutely is somebody that they could be going out and targeting and seeing with the need to go out and get a right-handed reliever that can get right-handed batters out, I think he's somebody that jumps to the top of the mind as being a potential option, especially from that step down from an Edwin Diaz or Devin Williams. Devin Williams, by the way, I think is going to get a massive contract, even with the struggles that he had last year. I think you're still talking about at least a 3 to 4 year deal with Devin Williams, given the season that he has. CNAV, at least we're not seeing Chris Taylor and Austin Barnes on the graphics this offseason. They do not have them on the roster. That also was a little bit of a warning sign to extending players for too long, or just making sure that you get to the guys that you want to go ahead and get. Al Minerva, Tucker/Bo position players. Betts and Freeman have left pressure. No more walking Ohtani if Bo is number 2. Sign Sale or for school for prospects if you get a chance. Let's see. Even if prospects get to graduate, Tarek gets a taste of LA in the playoffs with a better team. No opposing pitchers can navigate a lineup when Pajes is your 9, Teo is your 8. That would make a phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal lineup. I doubt it happens. Bo Bichette, I believe, is going to get a contract as if he were a shortstop, and I think that's going to be an incredibly expensive contract. Tracy, will rushing ever get used? The outfield, I doubt it's going to be the outfield for Dalton Rushing because they seemingly ended that experiment this past offseason and had him focus solely on catcher. That is a massive question mark and one that we're going to address quite a bit throughout the course of the offseason. What is the future of Dalton Rushing? That has to be clarified, and they have to be able to find some sort of way either to get him into the mix at some point in the future because he is a tremendous talent, or find some sort of way to be able to capitalize on the value that he has right now. Let's see. Bruce Skubal is not a free agent. The Dodgers would have to trade pretty top quality guys to be able to go ahead and get him for 1 year of control for a Tarek Skubal, and that would create a massive payroll, but certainly something that they could potentially do. Al Minerva, Devin Williams to replace Cruz, Kirby Hensley to be replaced Kopech. If they bust any innings like they do, if they're good, that would create an unreal team. Yeah, Al Minerva is looking to spend all of the money to be able to get all the players as best the players as you possibly can be. Let's see. CNAV says, I think DePaula and Sheehan would be included in the Skubal trade. Probably would be on that likelihood, if not more possible. Let's see. Continuing on to a couple more comments of what we have. Bruce Davis, just I'm good with Stone, River Ryan to play during the regular season. I don't know about River Ryan being in the playoffs for trying to win third straight championship. Both good options that they have, and I think he would potentially be really good pitcher to be able to have in the mix, and you'd have a lot of different guys to be able to go ahead and be part of your playoff rotation, but especially if you can get through the course of the regular season with Stone and River Ryan and relying on some of those younger guys like they did over the course of this regular season, and make sure that the arms that you want to pitch in October, Glasnow, Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Blake Snell, if you have that as your rotation in the postseason, you're going to be absolutely stacked and absolutely incredible. Just a couple more comments. Yang Yi, Shota, or Imai, I believe is what it is. We're going to get to that a little bit later. I don't have full coverage or full understanding about the guys coming over from the MPB, but he is somebody that is receiving a little bit more of speculation going forward as far as the Dodgers being able to get and acquire somebody like that, sign somebody that's a little bit more of an international free agent or just a free agent coming over from the NPB. The pitcher coming over from Japan could be somebody that the Dodgers could target. And I think they might pursue a starting pitcher just to help fill and eat innings this season. HP, I don't see much improvement from Call to Kwan, seriously. Yeah, they are profile-wise fairly similar players. Kwan, a little bit better against lefties. But if you look at Steven Kwan's numbers, let's actually pull it up really quick just because I want to make sure that you guys understand because Steven Kwan likely is going to be very expensive. This is the player that you would be getting if you are going out and trading for Steven Kwan. It would be over the past 3 seasons, 276, 344, but a 387 slugging percentage, 108 WRC plus. That's the exact same for Lars Nootbaar. If we look at, let's look at Alex Call and his numbers, what he's been able to do the past couple of seasons. If we look at Alex Call, the past 3 seasons, 100 WRC plus, 243, 342, 364. So you're looking at to go from an Alex Call to a Stephen Kwan, just looking at WRC plus, that's not taking into account anything, a jump of 8 points WRC plus, and likely a very expensive prospect package to be able to go out and get him. Stephen Kwan can hit full-time righties versus lefties, not bad versus left-handed pitching, pretty solid against lefties, but again, there's just no power with Stephen Kwan, which means there's not going to be a whole lot of impact, and that also means that he has to be getting some of these base hits, has to be making good decisions in the zone, and has to be continue to make good contact. If his contact quality drops at all, he's going to, as a player, struggle a little bit more for value, but he still has incredible defensive upside. So he's a better hitter than Alex Call. Defensively, he's a better player than what he is. Offensively, a little bit player, but profile-wise, fairly similar as a player. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not massive on going out and acquiring somebody like a Stephen Kwan, although I totally would understand if the Dodgers decided to do so. Just answering just a little bit of a repeat as far as programming for shows. I believe the next 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, Casey and I are going to be going on and being able to go back and forth about the offseason. We will also have a chance to be able to break down the guys that are eligible for the Rule 5 draft, which we'll go ahead and pull this up really quick. Just a little bit of a quick preview as far as guys that are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Let's go ahead and cut this over right here. These are some of the names based on my own research that I've been able to find. Nick Destrini, Anthony Knowles, Ronan Kopp, Garrett McDaniels, Josue Rodriguez, Ryan Sublett, Austin Gauthier, Noah Miller, Chris Campos, Roque Gutierrez, Peter Hubeck, Jared Karros, Christian Romero, Jacob Metter, Brandon Neek, Kelvin Ramirez, Levan Reynoso, Jermaine Rosario, Lucas Webb, Yainer Fernandez, Griffin Lockwood Power, Nelson Quiroz, Sean McClain, Kyle Nevin, John Rhodes, Taylor Young, Damon Keith, Chris Newell, Maddox Bruns. I don't believe UIL Bar is actually part of the organization anymore, but Ronaldo Yin, Jesus Galiz, Frank Rodriguez, Jose Hernandez, and Jose Meza are guys that are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft, and we're going to be discussing them. We're also going to be discussing offseason and what should be the moves that the Dodgers go out and make, because I think there potentially could be some differences that Casey and I are going to have, and so we're going to have a lot of back and forth going forward as far as the Dodgers offseason. What is the best path, because the offseason is a time to be able to make and cement dynasties and make your team even better. The Dodgers have already cemented themselves as a dynasty, but how do you make it even better? Is to win 3 championships in a row. And if the organization, which was not overly aggressive at the trade deadline this past year, or at least was reluctant at meeting the price during the trade deadline, they are a lot more aggressive during the offseason. What moves will they make to make this team as good as possible? And how will that be able to coincide with the moves that they have currently made? They added Ryan Ward into the mix. How does that impact the roster construction going forward is a massive determination, because if he is part of the mix, I believe it is fair and right to give Ryan Ward a fair opportunity going forward, which could limit some of your options or cause the Dodgers to pivot in another direction. And if they pivot in another direction, I still think they can make this team extraordinarily good, extraordinarily solid with a Ryan Ward in the mix. The question is, will they make that decision, or will they decide we want to go in another direction and we want to continue to add star power and talent to this roster? That is only going to be determined by the organization, and they will make that choice. They will make those choices coming up shortly. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow, Casey and I will be live a little bit after 7 p.m. Pacific, and then on Wednesday, I believe we're going to be live at 5:30 Pacific. Those times are tentative and could be subject to change depending on Casey and my availability. We'll try to get to as many of these shows as we possibly can. But until next time that we're able to talk to you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. God bless, and go Dodgers.